Hey everyone, Dave here at Blueberries Games with another edition of $20 budget decks. Today's deck is Scavenger. Scavenger is kind of a weird ability that came out from Return to Ravnica, that block. I'm going to go ahead and show you what it is. It's not a tier 1 style deck by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a weird deck. It's kind of a niche, never really explored, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what it's all about. Alright, so Scavenge is an ability that says when this card is in your graveyard, you can exile it or remove it from the game to put its +1/+1 counters on it equal to the card's power. So, with that being said, here's what this deck does. So, we start off with Silverhead because it's a 1-drop. This deck curves out, meaning that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as far as the drops go, and then as your creatures die, you can actually use them to beef up the rest of your creatures. This one does it for free, so that's why I chose him, other than the fact that he's a 1-drop. He's the only creature in the deck that does it for free. Of course, it's only a 1/+1/+1 counter, but the bigger your creatures get, the harder it is for your opponents to deal with them. So I went ahead with that. The next one's our 2-drop. It's a 2 to cast, 2/2, so it's a bear that has Scavenge as well. So he will put 2 +1/+1 counters on any creature if you scavenge him. Now, Scavenge is expensive on some creatures. I have rectified that a little bit a little later, and I'll show you that as we get to it. So we got a play set of those. Next up is the 3-drop. It is a 3/3 haste with Scavenge. This is the reason why it's a second color. We needed the black for not just spot removal, but because Dreg Mangler is actually a pretty decent 3-drop by any standards as it is today. It's still a 3 to cast, 3/3 with haste. So Scavenge is actually for this card just a bonus. The 4-drop is Sluiceway Scorpion. Unfortunately, it's only a 2/2, but it has Death Touch. So the point of him for this deck is that you're going to block whatever you need to or attack in, and he'll kill whatever is in his way. And then you can scavenge him. Now, his scavenge is cheaper than the rest, except for the Silverhead. So you can go ahead and use him effectively to kill something and then make one of yours bigger at the end. So we got 4 of those in there. The next one is Corrosive Monitor. It is a 4 to cast, 3/3. It has Trample along with its Scavenge, so most likely your targets when you're doing the Scavenge will be him. Just because he already has built-in Trample, so that the bigger he is, the more damage he can do. So we went with black because of the removal. The removal is kind of important because your creatures alone can't do it, and the bigger your creatures get and the less creatures on your opponent's side, naturally, the more damage you're going to do. So, we went with 2 Terrors. We went with 2 Devour Fleshes, and the reason for Devour Fleshes is we have to let them make their choice. So, they have the choice between, one of the bigger creatures, which they never choose, but if you've already removed some of their ones, they have no choice but to. But then you also gain the life equal to that creature's toughness to help so you stay alive longer. Assassinate is for aggro decks that usually like to just tap everything, or for a lot of creatures that have abilities that your opponent will just tap to use their abilities. You can go ahead and just destroy it because they're not going to attack with it, so you need that. Asphyxiate is exactly the opposite of Assassinate. It destroys an untapped creature. That's for those creatures that have static abilities that just sit there and do something that you really don't want to worry about. Again, they won't attack with them because their static ability does a lot more for them not attacking. So you go ahead and use this on that. Daring Demolition. It does a creature or a vehicle. Vehicles aren't really prevalent. They haven't really found their stride too much. I do know that coming up in the new Pioneer format, there's talks of the Smuggler's Copter making a return, since it won't be banned at first. I believe it will end up being banned. In fact, most of the cards that were banned in Pioneer or in Standard that are now legal in Pioneer, I believe, uh, in my heart of hearts, I think that they're all going to end up being banned, just like, they were in Standard. So this helps with vehicles. This one specifically is for if you're playing an opponent who's doing like smugglers, copters. It's the only real, in my opinion, the only vehicle that's really worth it. Contract killing, it helps it so that you can not just destroy a creature, but helps you with mana. It gives you 2 treasure tokens so that you can use the mana for later. Putrefy, and the other reason that this deck had to be black, Putrefy is probably one of the best removals from the Ravnica block forward. It's not, as far as cost goes, dollars to value as far as the card goes, this is one of the better ones because it's not just a creature removal, but it's also an artifact removal as well. The fact that it can't be regenerated, regeneration doesn't really exist all that much, but there are some things out there, so I put 2 of those in here. Treasured Find is to get something back that you need. Some of the creatures in here and some of your spot removal you may need, so I went ahead and put 2 of those in here just because it's really cheap. I mean, way back in the day, Regrowth was 2, and it's one of the better cards in Magic as far as getting back something you need. This is the same thing. It's 2 to cast. You can get anything back. It's not restricted by being a permanent. It's not restricted by being an instant or sorcery. It can get anything back. Alright, so the rares. First one up, Corpse Jacked Menace. It is a 4 to cast 4/4. Now, in terms of Magic, that has become more the norm lately. There is an elf that was recently made. It's 4 to cast 4/4, and there's a couple other ones that have recently been, more recently. When I say recently, I mean within the last 2 or 3 years. So this is more the norm now, but it's still a pretty good cost to power and toughness. This one also has the greatest ability when it comes to this deck. It really plays to Scavengers' strengths. So if 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be placed on a creature, you may place that many +1, twice that many. So when you scavenge out anything, it gets twice the counters. So the Slitherhead, it's free. You can get 2 +1/+1 counters for it. So it's kind of important to put something in it that meshes well. That will mesh very well. Alright, the next up is Voral's, the Scar Striped. 3 to cast 2/2. This is what I was talking about earlier. It makes your scavenge costs cheaper by far because some of these guys take a lot to scavenge. So this will reduce the cost down. It has the added bonus of being able to sacrifice the creature to regenerate himself. So if you've got a whole bunch of counters on him, you can sacrifice the creature to regenerate him. Not the best scenario, unless, of course, somebody plays a whole bunch of either spot removal or a non-Wrath of God Wrath effect. And what I mean by that is Day of Judgment doesn't say they can't be regenerated like Wrath of God does. So if they're playing stuff like that, if you're losing all your creatures anyway, you can actually sacrifice 1 to regenerate them. So it's not that bad. He's also only 3 to cast for a 2/2, so not bad at all. Alright. Deadbridge Goliath. So, in Magic's history, one of the more expensive cards ever printed monetarily is Juzam Djinn. Juzam Djinn is a 4 to cast, and I believe it's 2 black, 2 of any, for a 5/5. The drawback is it deals a damage to you. This guy doesn't have a drawback. He literally is just a 4 to cast 5/5 with an ability that's helpful to you. He also scavenges and puts those 5 counters on something else. Why in the world this card never really made it, I'll never know. But this is essentially a green Juzam Djinn with a bonus instead of a drawback. I mean, come on, it's 4 to cast 5/5. It's super friendly costed, so I went ahead and put that in there. Maybe in the new Pioneer format, he may end up being something. I doubt it though. So have fun playing with him. It's actually pretty good for the cost. And then the special card that I always put in is In Garrick's Wake. Again, I always explain this, is board clogging is a thing in Magic. People always have too many, everybody has too many creatures out. You can't do anything about it. This clears the way so that you can get in there. So, alright, so we are a black-green deck, so obviously forests and swamps. I always put in every deck the dual land that goes with it, as far as a guild gate, or anything that's similar to it, as long as I have them to put in the deck. So I've got a play set of those. And I did not, for this deck, put in Evolving Wilds or Foe Fetches. The only reason I did that is this deck doesn't really lend itself to needing it. Just because it curves out at 5 or at 4, it doesn't really need it. So that, my friends, is Scavenger. It is an odd deck, but it is an effective deck. So go ahead and give it a try.